Burchard E. Horn's Watts Regulator Company began production of the temperature and pressure relief valve in the late 1920s. They did this in order to provide public safety from disastrous explosions caused by superheated water. Although pressure relief valves had been manufactured for many years, hot water storage vessels continued to explode with frightening regularity, causing millions of dollars in property damage and loss of life. In 1935, the American Gas Association sponsored the Z21-22 standard for temperature and pressure relief valves and based that standard on the Watts temperature and pressure relief valve design. It is interesting to note that that standard still applies today for the manufacturer of all temperature and pressure relief valves. In 1936, George Horn, having recently graduated from college with a degree in marketing, accepted responsibility for the sales of these temperature and pressure relief valves from his father. George had to overcome skeptics who were reluctant to spend the higher price of a temperature and pressure relief valve. He set out across this great country to educate consumers and tradesmen alike on the dangers present in production, storage, and distribution of potable hot water. 40 gallons of superheated water will violently take up 67,000 gallons of space in the blink of an eye. In an event such as this, the energy released is equivalent to several pounds of high explosives. Watts' temperature and pressure relief valve design causes the valve to open at 210 degrees Fahrenheit, thereby avoiding the possibility of superheating the water. Under the leadership of Timothy P. Horn, Watts has continued to develop innovative products, including those that deal with backflow prevention and thermal expansion. Now, as the new millennium begins, Watts Regulator once again leads the industry in developing solutions to ongoing and new problems regarding the design of safe hot water supply and point of use for residential, commercial, and institutional applications. You know, in today's world, the use of potable hot water in both commercial and residential applications is essentially taken for granted. These systems supply the hot water necessary for cleanliness and sanitation needs. They're also expected to deliver this water in a clean, safe, reliable, and sanitary manner. Hello, my name's Dave Yates. I'm a plumbing contractor with a master plumber's license and over 30 years of experience in the trades. I own and operate F.W. Baylor Incorporated, a plumbing, heating, and air conditioning firm that was established in 1900, so we've been around for a few years. I also write for Contractor Magazine, and I write articles for Radiant Living Magazine. The perception that today's codes provide all the ingredients necessary for us to supply and deliver potable hot water in a safe manner is little more than a pipe dream, and I'd like to explain a little bit about the reasons why I feel that way in this tape. In spite of massive efforts on the part of both the media, manufacturers, and those of us in the trades to turn down the temperature on water heaters in order to stem the tide of lawsuits that have arisen from scalding issues, those scalding cases continue to go on in the thousands each year. The cost from the litigation and for all those settlements has numbered in the millions year after year after year. Code officials, designers of plumbing systems, maintenance personnel, mechanical contractors, we are all faced with a number of different things that affect the safe delivery of potable hot water. In this video, we will discuss not only hot water safety, but we will differentiate between source, supply distribution, and point of use, three key areas in this potable hot water stream. Come on, let's go take a look at the first one, which is source. Here we are at the source. We have 3 residential style water heaters, 3 apartments above. And you might ask yourself, what is the correct temperature for the potable hot water in the beginning of this potable hot water stream as it goes out to the apartments? Is it 140, 135, 130, 120, or perhaps 110 degrees Fahrenheit? If you answered 120 degrees Fahrenheit to that question, then you are under the misconception, as I was, and as is almost everybody in this trade, that that is a safe delivery temperature for potable hot water, when in fact it is not. Scalding at 120 degrees is still a very real issue. and there are some other things to take into consideration. Although water heaters are an extremely reliable device and one of the best buys for an American consumer that's on the market today, when you think of all the mechanical devices that we install, the fact that we can buy a water heater installed in a customer's residence and walk away for essentially 10 to 20 years before anything has to be done with that device is almost unheard of with any other mechanical device. But there are some inherent problems with water heaters, one of which is stacking of hot water temperatures, which can take place in any vertical tank where the water starts to stack extremely hot temperatures up towards the top. Think of it like layers, like pancakes on a plate, each layer or each pancake being a different temperature. Now, for the physical well-being of people, 106 degrees is the threshold for pain when someone's in the shower or if they have their hand under a faucet. And while that's okay for people our age, for the very young or the very elderly, they either won't be able to get out of the way of that extremely hot water because they won't know where the pain's coming from, or they've lost the ability to sense that difference in temperature. One of the other things that happens when we turn down the temperature of water heaters, which is what has happened in our industry over the last 10 years, people tend to run out of hot water sooner than they did before with the same size water heater. And one of the things that people have done is to simply turn up their unitrols. And you can hear that one kicked right on. So what's going to happen now, instead of roughly 120 degree water, which is where this came set from the factory, I've set this up to a range where I know from experience that we're going to see somewhere between 140 and 160 degree water in this tank when this is finished running. One of the things that I intend to do right now is to turn this water heater back down to where it was previously so that the tenants upstairs don't have a sudden and unwelcome surprise tonight when they come home and take a shower. Now, even though water heaters come set from the factory at roughly 120 degrees, and everybody's been telling us for years and years and years that this is a safe temperature, we now know that it's not. We know that we can still have scalding at those temperatures. The Z21.10.1 regulations that govern residential water heaters of 75,000 BTUs or less allow for this stacking that takes place in water heaters and permit the temperature at the outlet to be as high as 190 degrees. As we talked before about the 140 degree temperature range being or giving the ability for immediate scalding, you can imagine that at 190 degrees that time is shortened to the point where a bather simply does not have the ability to get out of the way of that hot water, and third-degree burns, especially for children, become a reality. A child with third-degree burns will require skin grafts. Skin grafts do not grow as the child grows, so there is a need for the child to return to the hospital to have skin grafts continually through their childhood until they've reached maturity. So what we would create is a childhood of misery and a lifetime of disability by not protecting that bather in the environment. So the question becomes, what should a responsible designer, or for that matter a responsible installer like myself, do out in the field? In the past, all that we've been required to do is install pressure balance type valves rather than the thermostatic or pressure and thermostatic valves because they're less costly. Plumbing inspectors have no delineation between the three. All they know is that we've installed an anti-scald device and that's what they want to see. There's no protection that takes place back here. There's no constant circulation. All the protection is at the bathing area. Now homeowners, being homeowners, know that when they run out of hot water, they've got a thermostat on the front of this tank, and their reaction has been historically to turn that up. Makes for hotter water. Hotter water means they have to mix less hot water with more cold water to achieve the same temperature in the bathing environment. However, those pressure balance valves all come with a limit stop that we've set, or at least we're supposed to set, when we do the installation so that we know that we've got that temperature where we need it to be for safe bathing. When this temperature changes, the upper limit changes, and while the homeowner can come down here and adjust this temperature upward, they may not be aware of the fact that now the upper safety limit has changed by as much as whatever this has changed. It could be 30 or 40 degrees. So now if they let their child go into a bathing environment unsupervised, or an elderly person into a bathing environment that's not aware of this change having taken place, scalding once again becomes a very real issue. We've gone over a tremendous amount of information so far. What I'd like to do now is to go out to the shop and go over a few simple devices that can be added to any potable hot water system that will allow us to elevate the temperatures in this point of source. It will allow us to keep the temperature elevated throughout the distribution system, and it will allow us to protect the bather or the user of hot water at any fixture throughout the home. So without further ado, let's go to the shop and we'll take a look. So now the question is, what are these simple devices that we're going to add to our potable hot water distribution system to keep the system safe and reliable for the public's general health? We've already stated that we want a bronze circulator in the circulation system so that we have no stagnation, so we're going to add that. We've also talked about the inherent problems with stacking and hot water outlet temperatures with any water heater regardless of fuel use. So the first thing we need to add at the outlet of the water heater is an ASSE 1017 thermostatic valve to regulate that temperature and hold it to within plus or minus 3 degrees if the flow rate is up to 5 gallons, plus or minus 5 degrees if the flow rate is anywhere from 6 to 40 gallons, and plus or minus 7 degrees if that flow rate exceeds 40 gallons. But that's not where the story stops, because all we've done at this point is we've treated the water leaving the water heater, we've got constant circulation, but we have temperatures now that are well within the range for scalding. And so we need some protection at the point of use. And so what we propose is that at every point of use, an ASSE 1016 device, for instance this one, which is designed to be installed underneath lavatories and kitchen sinks, any place in the building where the owner or the occupant can come in contact with hot water, and they can regulate the final temperature of that, or it can be set by the mechanical contractor before he leaves the property. Staying with the 1016 valve, if we want one that's got a bit of a tamper-proof feature built in, Watts makes one that has an Allen screw at the top that when this is removed you can set the temperature and then lock it down in place. And if we have a standard faucet that doesn't have thermostatic and pressure balance protection built into it, this can be installed within 18 inches of the point of use as an ASSE 1016 rated device and used for that purpose. Or perhaps the best option of all is to go with a thermostatic and pressure balanced shower faucet or tub and shower faucet so that the bather is protected under all conditions. With 129 guest rooms and 2 million BTUs of input, hundreds of gallons of storage, and a dynamic water system that's always on the move, when my company, F.W. Baylor, was contracted to do the remodel for this hotel, I wanted to be sure that what we had was a Legionella-free system that goes out to all the guest rooms, the kitchen, and the public restrooms that are in the hotel. So we've set this up for storage temperatures of 135 to 140 degrees, so we have the pasteurization of this water and its long contact time, and as it goes out through this system there's no stagnation, everything's always on the move. The recirculation lines go within just a few feet of every one of the guest rooms, particularly the showers, because they're located out closest to the hallways. And it comes back down here and goes right back into this tank and right back out through that system again. So we've got the high temperature, we've got the storage so we have contact time to kill off the bacteria, and we've got water that's on the move. Now you might ask, what about in the guest rooms? What about scalding? We've got ASSE 1016 devices in each room to protect the bathers in the hotel. What we've done with the boilers is set a very tight line for the upper and lower limit on the aquastats, but that unfortunately is what we're relying upon. And one of the things that we want to see happen with codes is to insist that an ASSE 1017 device be installed at the point of hot water leaving the boiler room to go out to the rooms or in a house at a water heater, so that we can flatline that temperature regardless of what the boilers do. If we'd have a malfunction or a runaway situation, that ASSE 1017 will ensure that we stay plus or minus 3 degrees in the temperature that goes out in the potable hot water system that the public comes in contact with. You know, one of the interesting things that happens as we age is our reaction times slow down. Our ability to sense changes in temperature become less accurate. If we employ an ASSE 1016 device at any of the sink locations, those problems become moot. However, when we move to a bathing environment, there's a new set of issues that come into play. While in the bathing environment, if someone were to slip or fall, one of the natural reactions is to reach out and grab anything that's nearby to try to steady themselves. More often than not, that happens to be the faucet handle, and if that's done and it swings over all the way to hot and it's an unprotected device, the temperatures that the bather will experience can cause severe injury or death. In a case like this, where we have a temperature and pressure sensitive device, this is also an ASSE 1016, the bather is protected even in the event of a fall from scalding injuries. According to the American Hospital Association, there are over 100,000 scalding cases each year in the United States. When we checked with the Kids Safe campaign, we find that over 26,000, or roughly 25%, of those scalding injuries take place with children 5 and under. Infants 3 and under are particularly susceptible to burns because their skin is very thin and sensitive. They also don't really have the cognizance to realize where that pain that they're feeling is coming from. So in many cases, while they may be underneath a burning or scalding flow of hot water, they don't know to react and pull away from that. Something as simple as an under-sink Guardian, this Watts ASSE 1016 point-of-use device, easy to install even on a retrofit application, but even easier to install in new construction, is all that's required for us to provide the kind of protection to the public for their health and well-being. Now, if we were to add the estimates of 10,000 deaths or more that the Centers for Disease Control tells us are caused by Legionella bacteria in potable hot water systems within the United States, you might well get the impression that we're reciting statistics of injuries from a war. And in fact, in a very real sense, we are. But with a common sense approach of ASSE 1017 devices and ASSE 1016 devices at point of use, and constant circulation so that we maintain temperatures elevated above 131 degrees in potable hot water systems, we would find that not only do the scalding cases disappear for the most part, but Legionella takes a holiday. It's time that we changed the codes in this country, it's time that we brought about common sense, and it's time that we leveled the playing field so that contractors like myself are no longer caught in a competitive bid situation where they cannot afford to bring these into play to protect the public's general health. Legionellosis, commonly referred to as Legionnaire's disease, is acquired by inhaling bacteria-laden water vapor or mist into the lungs where the bacteria finds itself in a perfect environment for rampant growth. Legionella bacteria grow in potable hot water when temperatures are below 135 degrees Fahrenheit. As a result, water heaters set to maintain 120 degrees Fahrenheit do not protect people. First of all, let's discuss how people acquire Legionnaire's disease or Legionella bacteria within their systems. You need to be in an environment where the water has been atomized, so naturally showers would be a perfect place for someone to inhale the Legionella bacteria into their lungs, and your lungs are a perfect environment for the growth of Legionella bacteria. Centers for Disease Control shows us or states that over 95% of the U.S. population has been exposed to Legionella bacteria, and this they've confirmed through random blood sampling. One of the things that happens with water heaters, or any storage vessel for that matter, with potable hot water, where we turn the temperature down to 120 degrees or even below, is we've now turned that temperature down into a perfect range for Legionella bacteria growth. Let's take just a second to talk about what's needed for Legionella bacteria growth. We're looking for temperatures between 55 and 133 degrees Fahrenheit. We're looking for a pH between 5 and 8.5. We're looking for biofilms, which of course we'll find in any of the plumbing in a home that's been installed for more than a month or two. And we're looking for stagnation. On any system like this, when it goes into rest, we have stagnation. We've got biofilms. Of course, we have them at the bottom of the tanks as well. We've got it out through the distribution piping. We've got the pH in almost every water system throughout the United States falls between 5 and 8.5, and we have the perfect temperature range. So, just like that movie Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. And so we need to look at the possibility that what we're generating is a bacteria breeding farm, and we want to elevate those water temperatures and bring them up above 133 degrees. When we do that, we're generating a new set of problems, which goes back to where water heaters used to be set. And that is the scalding issue. At 140 degree delivery temperature, third degree burns can be achieved within a matter of half a second or less. Depends on the age and the physical well-being of the individual. So if we look at the accepted practices for what controls Legionella bacteria, we see that the ionization of copper and silver within the potable hot water stream not only will suppress it, but it will eradicate Legionella bacteria within that system. The problem with that is it's very expensive. It requires precise control, and it's not readily available for the residential market as of yet. And in fact, even in the commercial and institutional applications where it's used, it requires precise care. Chlorine or a derivative of chlorine, chlorine dioxide, is effective against Legionella bacteria because it has the ability to penetrate biofilms, which chlorine does not. The one thing that we all have available to us that works very well is to elevate the hot water temperature within the tank and out through the distribution system to within a few feet of the point of use, is to elevate that water temperature above 133 degrees. This, in fact, is the most economical and readily available solution that we have available to us today. What doesn't work as far as protecting the public against Legionella bacteria? Chlorine. Although chlorine is believed by many to be the be-all to end-all as far as protection of potable hot water systems, it doesn't work, and it doesn't work for several reasons. Number one, as water is heated, chlorine dissipates, so that by the time it gets to the faucet, in many cases, it's gone. And what happens as chlorine dissipates is it becomes aggressive to the metallic components within the system. So oftentimes you'll find pitting in the piping in the hot water side that you won't find in the cold water side. It also does not penetrate biofilms, and that's a place where Legionella bacteria love to hide and proliferate. If we want to have chlorine levels in a potable hot water distribution system at levels that can eradicate or suppress Legionella bacteria, they need to be 10,000 times greater than what they are today. Now we can't do that because it becomes extremely aggressive to any metallic components within the system, and it also works with the water and combines with other elements to form carcinogens. So that's an unsafe practice and is one that is not recommended. It's also called hyperchlorination. Another thing that's been practiced in hospitals and environments where Legionella bacteria have been found to be present is to do super hot water flushes where they raise the system temperature to 180 degrees or even higher, and that includes the point of source, the distribution system, and all the points of use. And then for 15 minutes at a time, they run 180 degree water out of all those taps, faucets, showers, whatever, dishwashers. The problem has been that number one, it taxes the equipment to its limits, and number two, it's very unsafe, and a lot of people have been scalded in the process. But number three, and most importantly of all, Legionella bacteria in recent studies have been found to be able to survive temperatures of 180 degrees and higher by hiding in the outer fringes of that biofilm that you'll find in the pipes. And so the hot water flushes don't work. Within weeks, typically, those Legionella bacteria are back. Dead-end plumbing, which of course is any plumbing that remains stagnant, can be a run of 10 feet, 20 feet, 100 feet. The plumbing codes already state that if it's in excess of 100 feet, we need to add a bronze circulator so that we can move the water through there to prevent stagnation. In many cases, the runs are longer than 100 feet, but it doesn't matter. In this system, we want to raise the water temperature above 133 degrees, incorporate a bronze circulator, and move that water 24/7 around those pipes, so that at no time do we allow that water temperature to drop back down into a range where the biofilm and the water temperatures and the pH can generate the type of environment where Legionella bacteria can enjoy rampant growth. Well, we certainly have covered a lot of ground, so let's take a minute to summarize what's needed in the plumbing codes for this country. We would like to see an ASSE listed 1017 device installed at the point of source, no matter what type of source that is. If it's an indirect water heater, electric, gas, or oil, it doesn't matter. We'd also like to see at that same location a thermostat so that the plumbing inspector, the homeowner, or we as contractors can very easily adjust that valve and see exactly what temperature we're sending out into the distribution system. And speaking of the distribution system, we would like to see circulation take place throughout that system so that at no time do the temperatures fall below 133 degrees. This will then keep that system free from Legionella bacteria. The last thing that we need in this potable water stream is an ASSE listed 1016 device within 18 inches of the point of use. And what that will do is allow for the final reduction of temperature for the bather to ensure the public safety. In conjunction with these changes in the plumbing code, inspectors need to be brought into this process to check the final delivery water temperature at the fixture, fill out the paperwork, initial it, date it, sign it, have the homeowner sign off on that. What that accomplishes is threefold. We've certified that the devices that we've installed are working correctly. We will have certified that the delivery temperature is within whatever established safe range you decide. We will then have the homeowner sign on, and in doing so, What will happen is the liability for everyone involved in this potable hot water distribution, from the people who designed the system all the way down to the installers, are protected liability-wise from frivolous lawsuits, and we've seen a tremendous number of those. Just as in the late 1920s, when Watts Regulator Corporation boldly stepped forward with a temperature and pressure relief valve and then went on a crusade to convince the American public and contractors alike that that was the right product at the right time, today they have the right product at the right time to alleviate scalding issues and handle Legionella hands down. They can handle flow rates from a half a gallon a minute to 10 gallons a minute. And as a plumber, the admonition that the plumber protects the health of the nation is one that I take very seriously, and so do my fellow tradesmen. So the only argument that you can possibly have for not implementing these changes at this time is the final cost to the consumer. But the fact is that we cannot afford not to implement these changes into the plumbing codes today.